my bike, and this time I need a new chain and new sprockets. So let's get to it. We're going to take this front sprocket cover off first. It's being held by a few bolts. There's one up here. There's one down here, one down here. I think that's all that's holding it. On some bikes, you might have this linkage that's actually in the way, so you might have to remove the foot peg, bracket, or whatever you need to move out of the way. Luckily, this bike, this is just held in by 8mm. I'm using a Motion Pro spinner T-handle with a 8mm extension, or socket, my bad. So we'll just break these loose really quick. Once this last one's out, just make sure you hold everything together. Alright, so now we expose that. Now the cover's off, we can see that there's the main nut we have to get off, but there's also this washer underneath it that has been pushed over here and here to prevent this from undoing itself. So we have to take a screwdriver or punch or whatever we need to flatten this and this out so that we can turn this freely. So I just got a cobalt screwdriver, cobalt hammer, try and wedge this open a bit. Get a little punch. Almost got all of it. Alright, that looks pretty good. Just get a tiny bit more. Alright, I'm going to be using a cobalt breaker bar, ratcheting breaker bar with a pivot with a 27mm socket to get that nut off. When we try to turn this, you want to make sure that the bike is in neutral, and then the rear tire is going to want to spin. So we took a breaker bar with a towel over it to protect the paint, just to make sure we're not going to mar anything. And that's going to stop the wheel from spinning when we try to turn this to break this off. This is torqued down at over 100 foot-pounds of torque. So we're going to be wrenching on this pretty hard. So go ahead, take that off. Alright, now we can put it there.
Alright, so first we're going to remove the breaker bar so that way we'll have it. Alright, if I can get it out. This towel is in there. Okay. And then right now we're going to take this cotter pin out using needle nose from Cobalt, and then some snips. Also, you do not reuse cotter pins at all. And then now using a breaker bar and a 32mm socket, we're going to get this castle nut off of the axle. Now using two 12mm wrenches, we're going to loosen up the adjuster. And we're going to do this to both sides, but right now, we're going to start right here.
Once we loosen the adjusters on both sides, we're going to break out our grinder and Dremel, and we're going to grind down one of the pins sticking out on the side of the chain so we can remove the flare that's been placed on them. This is going to make using our chain breaker tool a lot easier. This tool is called a chain breaker, and we sanded or grinded that pin down to make this tool easier to use. All this does is push that pin out that we just grinded down so we can cut the chain and put the new one on. You have the main body, a handle that screws in. This pin is the part that's actually going to push that pin out, so that goes, well, sorry, we're going to put the spring in first. We're going to put this pin in, and then this one actually determines how far out that pin goes, which is adjusted by us. And when you screw this in, you'll see that this pin is going to start to come out. But we're going to have it right about there, probably like 1 millimeter in. On the other end, we're just going to have this open hole so that when the pin comes out, it'll just go through here and fall out. If you don't have this tool and you only have access to a grinder or something similar, like maybe even a Sawzall, you can take that to the chain, cut it in half, and then that chain will come off that way. If you go this route, this is just more of a specific tool. This one's made by Stockton. Pick this up at Cycle Gear. I got it on sale for about $45. Comes with a riveter and a whole bunch of other dies and stuff like that. It's pretty nice tool. So right here we have this circle, and we're gonna put that on the other side of the part that we grinded. And you'll feel the little pin sticking out, the rivet. Make sure that this is level, and you're gonna screw this lower one in. It's gonna lower everything down. And try to make sure you're as center as you can be. Now you're gonna start screwing this one in. That's gonna push out that center pin. I'm gonna take a socket to this. I'm gonna start wrenching down on it. And this is gonna force that center pin out, and it's gonna push the pin inside the chain out the other side. It doesn't take a lot of force because we grinded it down. But if we didn't grind it down and we tried to do this, sometimes this tool will actually break. Even though some tools say not to grind it first, and I think that might be why. Just so it breaks and you have to buy another one. So just keep going. And you'll feel it get really, really easy. Just started getting easy. Okay. So we'll back this one up until we know it's out. Start backing this one. And there is our pin. Just got pushed out. And look at that. Chain's on the floor.
Alright, so we'll remove this block and then push out the axle. And make sure you watch out for the brake help.
When we're going to do this sprocket replacement, first thing you want to do is take any spacers out that you may have and make sure that you know which side they go on. We're just going to do a quick bearing inspection. Right here you have a bearing that rotates. First thing you want to do is just grab it and twist it. If you feel any grittiness, like any sand or anything like that, it should be very, very smooth. Then if you feel any grittiness, this needs to be replaced. If you try and shake it back and forth, if it moves, it needs to be replaced. If you try and tilt it at all, if it moves, it needs to be replaced. The only movement should be in a circular motion, and you shouldn't feel any grittiness. It should be very smooth. Next thing we're gonna do, you wanna check this one and the other side. Next thing is a cush drive inspection. Right under here, under the sprocket, you have little rubber things in here. This basically just cushions the power from the motor to the rear wheel, so it's not as shocking, and it'll help the chain last longer. So to inspect these, you push this all the way down. If you hold the rim still and you try and twist this way or that way, we shouldn't feel pretty much any motion. If you hear a clicking, it moves a lot and clicks, moves a lot and clicks, that means that you have no cush drive, someone removed it, or for whatever reason just disintegrated. But if you get about this much play, it needs to be replaced. As you see here, it's nice and firm, so this does need to be replaced. To remove this sprocket, we're going to take all of these bolts off. Oh, I'm sorry, these nuts off. And we want to make sure that we go in a star pattern so that it comes off evenly and we're not going to warp any metal or anything like that. I'm going to be using a impact gun from Cobalt. Check rotational direction. This is a 14mm bolt. There we go. Set that aside, grab the other one, set it, roll off. So when we take this off, that's how you take it off right there. Nice and easy. We'll grab our new one. You want to make sure that you have the same amount of teeth as your old sprocket, unless you know that you decided to get more teeth or less teeth. It's on you. And this one seems to be pretty good. We're going to set this just like that with the writings, a 525/39 chain from Supersprox. This is one of those really good sprockets that are dual materials, so you get strength and lightweight at the same time. We'll just get our nuts right now. Don't cross thread. This don't bother me. Those are all good. I'm going to tighten these down with the impact just to make them go on quickly, but I have it on a very low setting, so I'm not going to put very much power to these at all. I do have a torque spec for these, and just as before, when we loosened in a star pattern, you also want to make sure that you tighten in a star pattern. So I'm just going to get these snug. I'm not going to get these really, really tight. Alright, now I'm going to torque these down. Torque spec is 44 foot-pounds. I'm using a Cobalt 3/8 drive 20 to 100 foot-pound torque wrench. Make sure the rim doesn't move on you when you do this. And you want to make sure that you're applying an even amount of torque as much as you can to all of these. And a star pattern as before. Alright, and now we should start hearing some clicks. Now I'm just going to go around one more time and make sure everything, nothing loosened as I was tightening everything else. Alright, so that's a rear sprocket install. So for installation of the rear tire, I'm going to slide this forward, let it drop in. Watch out for your spacers, because they like to get caught and fall out all the time. It helps if you put your foot underneath. Line up your brake caliper, go ahead. And this might take a second. I'll angle it a little bit quick. Alright, so I'm going to straighten out the wheel. So once everything's lined up, throw that axle through. We're putting that axle through. It's almost all the way through now. Alright, axle's through. Just like that. We'll get our aluminum block and washer. On this side, washer goes on top. We'll get our giant castle nut. We're not gonna snug, we're just gonna get it slightly tight, I guess. We're not gonna tighten this down. And now we got that taken care of. We can start working on the front sprocket and the chain. Have this chain loose, just put on the rear tire, take this front sprocket off. And keep in mind the orientation that you took this off. Now you're going to get your new sprocket. Make sure that the teeth are the same count. So these are the same. And make sure that the distance that it sticks out is the same. Which, even though you have this lip, the contact surface is going to be in the center, which is the same height as this one. So this one will match. This will be a good match. These splines, make sure they line up. We're just going to take the rest of this chain out. Get out of the way. Throw this with the numbers facing out, just like that. We're going to grab the washer and the nut. I got the spline washer that goes on top. And the nut. We're not going to tighten this all the way down, we just want to make sure we get everything in position. Because if I were to tighten this down at the torque specified, the whole assembly will twist. So once we get the chain on, we'll do the same thing we did when we took this off, and to hold this in place so we don't put any stress on the transmission. So now we are ready to put the master link on the chain. I'll show you that in a second. We have these X-rings that are included with our chain kit. Depending on what bike you have, you may have a clip instead, and that way you just clip it right on the bike. It's nice and easy. But this needs a bit of a more secure fit. We have this grease that comes with it, that we're using this grease so we can lube up these X-rings a bit. So just make sure you get it all over. And you're gonna have 4 X-rings that are included. Let me get the other 2. Alright, so now that these are all lubed up, we're going to take our master link. We're going to get a little bit of grease on here. You really just want to just saturate this thing in grease. Just get it wherever you can. We're going to take 2 of our X-rings, slide it over these pins. And now we're ready to put it on the chain. Got the master link, the pins, the O-rings, you're just going to thread your new chain through, and you want to make sure that this is cut to length. Mine was 112 links. This one was 120. So you just measure it, compare it to the other chain, cut it where it needs to, and use the same tool before to push the pin out. And that, you want it to end like this. You might have to decrease your adjusters a little bit so you can make it fit. Take this, it doesn't matter which way this is flipped, but push it in from the back through these holes. So you stick out the other end. You're going to take some of your grease. You're going to grease this up again on this side, just a little bit. You're going to take 2 more of your X-rings and put them here. And then you're going to grab your pressure plate, which is the outside of it, and just try to see if you can keep this on with your fingers. Try to push that in place so we can get our tool and actually force this in. We got the tool again. I have a backing plate here. It's going to go on the back of the chain, and on this side I have the 2 holes so that these pins can come through. We're going to set the backing plate in the back, and we're going to set the other plate in the front. And just be careful, this pressure plate is very sensitive as far as it wanting to fall off and make you really, really mad. So try your best to just line this up. You just want to get it on so it doesn't fall off to begin with. I'm going to grab my ratchet. And we're just going to tighten this down just enough for now. We're going to back this off. Once we know the pressure plate's on a decent amount, we can take this back off. Don't get it too tight. And we have to see, compared to another link, how wide it is. And we have to make sure that this one is just as wide so that we don't crush the X-rings in here. So taking a baseline with a caliper, we're going to open this up and we're going to measure one of them. Sorry, so this one's at 20.04. What I'm doing right now is at 21.17. So we have a little bit more to go. And just continue to do this until you get it right on the mark. So now I finally got it. Got it matching, or at least very close. So this one is 20.06. Mine is about 19.95, somewhere around there. Now, even though I'm a little bit more, if you roll it down and you check it to see if it's tight, this is still very loose. So even though I went a little bit over, it's still fine. I'm going to get that tool again, and we have to flare these rivets out. This is how I have it set up. I have the spring. I have a rivet part attachment, and then the backing screw that goes in. On the other side I have a little anvil to hold the pin so that when I try and rivet these, it's not going to push the pin out. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to measure with the caliper how wide this is, and then we're going to measure how wide this is, and try your best to get it matched. After you get your rivets taken care of, come up here and torque this down. This one's set at 100 foot-pounds. The torque is 107 foot-pounds. And you got that washer back here still, so make sure you hit that flat on 2 sides, and then it's just cleanup after that. So next, just put your front sprocket cover on, do a alignment and chain tension, clean your chain, and you're pretty much done. It's really just a wrap up. So if you have any questions, comments, put them down below. You can also get a hold of me through Instagram and Facebook as well. I'll put everything in the description so you can get a hold of me. All right, well, have a good day.